Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone had a great long weekend for for the Eastern celebrations, and um, I think you all had a wonderful time. Today, as promised, Roberto is here with us again. We keep going on the Spirits book stud, and today he will talk the theme return to spiritual life and plurality of existences. So return to spiritual life and plurality of existence. For those who don't know, if I did the right thing, we are live on Instagram as well. Let me check here. Let me check. Yeah, we are live on Instagram, but there is a problem here because we are not showing our faces, Roberto.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just in the middle of
Mm.
okay. How to fix this? I don't know. Let's keep it this. I don't mind. Okay. First things first. So Roberto, thank you for joining us again. Thank you for FESP to give you this space for Ireland, and it's a pleasure to have you here once more.
Thank you, Esteban.
Okay.
I'm grateful for this opportunity to be here.
Okay. Yeah, Carlton, you said you can see on Facebook. Yes, yes. Facebook and YouTube are fine. Just Instagram, I think it's because of the size of the screen. People are not seeing us. But when Roberto will start his explanation, the slide will be captured. So that was the most important thing. I am not important for this, but the slides and the explanation from Roberto is the most important ones. So in order to start, let me do the initial prayer. So I'd like to invite everyone to have a deep breath if you can, if you want, close your eyes, and let's raise our thoughts towards our mentors of your country, your mentors. Ask them to enlighten ourselves, to guide today Roberto in his explanation, and may these words reach those hearts who are suffering from anxiety, suffering from fear, those who are lost. So be it. Amen. Okay, my friend, let me put your deck here. Looks fine. So you you can start, my friend. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Esteban. Hello, everybody. Uh, Glad to be here with you all again. And we are going to continue our study of the Spiritist book. We are on the second book, book two of this Spiritist book. And last month we talked about the spirits and incarnation of spirits. Today we are going to talk about the disincarnation, right? Which is the return from the corporeal to the spiritual life through death. And also we are talking today about the reincarnation, which is the plurality of existences. Okay, so this is the chapter 3 and 4 of the book 2 of the Spiritus book. So Let's start now. Let's start by talking about the return from the corporeal to the spiritual life. Well, that happens when we die, right? So, what happens to the soul, which means ourselves, right? After death. After death, the soul becomes a spirit again, preserving its individuality through its spirit. So it means that we now, as an incarnate being, we are souls which have our physical body, and we have also an intermediate body, which is the perispirit. And when we die, we live here on earth, our physical body, and we go to the spiritual world with our perispirit. So it means that we always have a kind of a body with us, right? So perispirit is a kind of a subtle body. It's a subtle matter. And what do we take from this world? We take only our memories, our experiences, the knowledge that we got here, the moral advancement that we accomplished here. That go with us. Nothing regarding the material world go with us, right? And then we go with our that's why Kardec says that we go only with our memories and the desire to go to a better world. And such memories that we go with, and Kardec says that it's full of sweetness if we did it well during our incarnation, or full of bitterness if we did bad, right, in our earthly life. And the pure the soul is, the more it will comprehend the futility of what is it has left behind on earth. So it means that if we have enough understanding about the meaning of our lives, when we die, go to the spiritual world, we don't care about what we leave behind, right? Our material beings, our car, our house, our money, nothing of that. It's important to us because it doesn't have any use in the spiritual world. We go. By the other hand, of course, we keep our love to our parents, our friends, which were left behind, right? So these go with us, but nothing related to the material possessions is important to us after death. And how the separation of the soul from the body happens, and the separation of the soul, we ourselves from our body. It's important. It's interesting here that Kardec says that it's not a painful process because uh, we in general we are afraid of dying, right? So that's not a bad thing. It's good because we have the law of conservation. So we try to keep it alive, right? Alive. But then when we die and the separation of the soul from the body happens, as I said, the physical body is left behind when we go to the spiritual world only with our perispirit. And this separation is not a painful process. Um, the spirit even say that the body suffers more during life than at the moment of death. It means that during our life, we have diseases, we have accidents, we have situations where our body suffers. And but at the moment of death, there is no such thing. Why it happened this way? Because in a normal situation, death occurs after some period of sickness. And during this period of sickness, the soul, we as soul, disengages ourselves from little by little from the bonds that attach us to our body. So, and we know from studying spiritism, that the sensation of the pain, for example, is transmitted from our physical body to our mind or to we as soul through our perispirit. So the perispirit is the way we feel pain, for example, no? Or pleasure from our body. Well, when we are disengaging with ourselves from our physical body, then such sensations all diminish, right? So it's a logical thing. That's why by the time the soul disengaged entirely from the physical body, well, the soul doesn't feel any pain because it is not connected, attached anymore to the physical body through the perispirit. So that's why that explains why we don't feel pain in at the moment of a death, right? And what happens that for some person, the soul's departure or the spirit's departure is relatively quick, depending, for example, if I'm a person that by understanding, for example, the meaning of our life is that we are immortal spirits, that we are here in this incarnation only to get some experience in order to evolve in intellectual and moral aspects. Then, when we die, we do not take any value to this material world. So that's why our departure is relatively quick, right? By the other hand, if you imagine a people who is strongly attached to the material world, to his body, and pleasure, pain is something very important to him. The material beings, the things that he or she has, is very important. In such case, the departure of the soul is takes much longer because the soul is attached to the material things. So that's the explanation why the departure can be quick or not, right? Depending on the situation. And the spirit even say that in the case of of the person who is not attached to the material world, uh, sometimes in the body is still alive, but the spirit is not there anymore. So it leaves the body before the body is completely dead, right? So that's why that's what is it. The spirit is explained here, right? In the death throes, there are some spirits. There are some cases where the soul has already left the body, which is has nothing left in it except organic life. It means the heart is beating, right? The blood circulating, but this soul is not, the spirit is not there anymore. So it can happen in this situation. But as I said, is when the guy is not attached to the material world, right? So in this case, we can have this situation. Um, and which kind of sensations the soul experiences at the moment when it realizes that it is in the spiritual world, or in the moment it realizes that it is dead, right? So uh, the spirits say that if it had done evil, it feels ashamed of what it has done. But if it had done good, then um, the opposite sensation it will feel, right? It will feel peace and comfort, right? Because that's something very important. We can do many things here while we are incarnate, but after we die, we do a kind of rememoration, right? What we did in the incarnate, and that put well puts a trigger, a kind of a trigger in our on our conscience, right? If we done well or if we did not do well, right? So that's what happened here. So, and those whom we knew on earth, it means, for example, our friends and relatives that were gone already before us. When at the moment we are going to die and go into the spiritual world, they come and help us, right? They come to receive us because death does not eliminate the bonds, the bonds of love, right, that we have with our relatives or friends. So that when that this important moment to all of us, they come to help us, for example, to release us from the bonds of matter. So they help us, right? And they come and they receive us, like when we are going to visit a friend and the visitor and the friend receive you, right? In his or her house. Something similar occurs at this moment. And we also, when we are in the spiritual world, we can see those, Kardec says, those who are in the errant state. Errant state here, we must understand, and the spirits that live in the spiritual world, right? So we can see the other spirits there in the spiritual world. But more than that, we also can come and visit the friends and relatives that we left behind, right? So we can visit those who are still incarnate. Does not mean that we can talk to them or have a conversation, right? We could, but in that case, it would have to be through a medium. But normally we come, we visit, we see them, we can give them some advice. I mean mentally, right? And so the bonds of love, of a friendship, is not cut by the phenomenon of the death. That is what is we can see here, right? So, but at the moment of death, we get in a kind of a state of a confusion. It's like it happens sometimes when we have a deep sleep, and then sometimes we wake up and we don't know if it is morning or if it is night, if it is afternoon, which day is today, it is Monday, Tuesday. So it takes some time before we can relocate again, right? So that happens in the moment of a death. So that's what is written here, right? So and but those who are already purified, those who understand the situation, are immediately self-aware. It means that, for example, we spiritists, for example, which are aware about the reality of incarnation, disincarnation, reincarnation. So, and well, in our case, probably we will take conscience of our situation soon after we die, right? So soon after we go to the spiritual world. So that's what is written here, and we can compare with the situation of a guy which is totally materialist, right? Who, well, for me, after life there is nothing, right? There is empty, there is not void, total void. So such kind of a person will take more time to realize, right, that after he dies, there is no nothing, right? Nothing, right? So it keeps living in a different situation, but still living, still thinking, still sensing what happening around him or her. So that's the situation here. And what happens in a kind of a violent for example, right? Suppose that the guy dies in a crash accident, for example, right? So in that case, the spirit is surprised and astonished. It does not believe that it is dead, right? It happens it's common this to happen in the spiritist center when we through the medium the spirit of the spirit comes and talks to us and say, for example, well, I was there in the hospital. I was waiting for a surgery. Then I remembered that I was going to the surgery center, and now I'm here. I'm not understanding what is happening, right? I still can see. I'm talking here, and I can have a sensation of what's happening around me, but it's a different situation. What's happening, right? So the person does not know, still does not know that it is dead, right? So in that case, we orient such a spirit, right, in the spirit center. So and the reason it believes that it is still alive is because the spirit continues to think, to see, and hear. So that's the situation here, right? So, and then it goes, for example, to its home and talk to his family, but nobody answer to his question, for example, and he he feels that strange, right? Why the person does not respond to my question, right? So this illusion, Kardec says, lasts until the separation from the body is complete. Because when the soul separates completely from the body, because in violent death, the separation from the spirit, the soul and the perispirit from the body takes more time, like we said, right? So it's gradually, little by little, is detached from the physical body. So that's why the spirit has still the illusion that it is alive, right? So that's the situation here. Now we are going to talk about, well, next month we are going to talk about the spirit life. How is our lives when we are in the spiritual world, after we die? So I can say after we die, or I can say before we are born, right? Because before we are born, before we reincarnate, we were there, right, in the spiritual world. So next month we'll see how is our life there. And but now we are going to talk about the reincarnation, right, which is the plurality of existences. So, a soul, we cannot reach perfection in just one corporeal life, right? So that it's impossible to us because perfection takes a longer time. So that's why when we die, we we spend a period of a time in the spiritual world, and it's interesting that there in the spiritual world we still study, we can work, we can have a relationship with the other spirits, and then after some time we reincarnate again, because in order to evolve, we must have the spirit experience of the corporeal life. That's why we are always come back again to the material world through reincarnation, right? So we must submit ourselves to the trial of a new existence, like Kardec says here. And so that after leaving one body through death, we, as I said, we spend some time in the spiritual world, and then we take another body through reincarnation, right, to uh, to be born again on Earth. And we do that many times in order to accomplish our progress. And when we are we leave all our impurities behind, then we don't need to reincarnate anymore. So that is the state of the pure spirit that we saw 2 months ago, right? Pure spirit is a spirit which reaches such a level of perfection that it does not need to reincarnate in dense bodies like this one that we have, right? So it is the case of Jesus, for example. Huh? Sometimes people can think, well, but Jesus reincarnated 2,000 years ago. But that was a special situation because by his love for us, he came, right, to teach us about the law of love. But it didn't, it hadn't any need to reincarnate, right? It reincarnated as a mission, as we say in Spiritism, right? So, because he is a pure spirit. And all spirits are en route toward perfection. And so the title here is the justice of a reincarnation. What is the justice of a reincarnation? It means that all spirits go toward perfection. All, not even one are left behind, right? So that's why we call justice of God in this case, right? God furnished us with the means of accomplishing this perfection through reincarnation, through the trials of corporeal life, right? And then, and if what we cannot do in some incarnation, we can do in the next one, right? So we always have a new a new a new a new, a new experience, right? A new trial. So and that's why if I, for example, I am I'm sad because I still have some imperfection now that I find very difficult to control. I can derive a consoling hope, as Kardec said here, from the doctrine of reincarnation, because I know that in this incarnation I can't control this imperfection I have, but I will have new opportunities in the future, new incarnations where I can get this control that I don't have it today. Right? So that's why reincarnation is a very important thing. If we have that in our mindset, we think it's totally different regarding our corporeal life, right? And we also can we incarnate in different worlds. We don't on this path to our to perfection, on the way to perfection. We do not reincarnate in just one world. It means that we are not going to reach perfection on Earth, right? So, through many incarnations here, we incarnate in different worlds, and not all of so we even may have already lived in other worlds besides Earth. For example, uh, the Earth now, we say, we studied that on the Gospel according to Spiritism. Earth now is a world of trial and expiation, but there is a kind of a world which is inferior, is more inferior than Earth, which is the primitive world. So we may have lived already in some primitive world, and then we came here to Earth, right? So, and in the same way, when we reach the most we can in terms of evolution on Earth, then we can go to a superior world, for example, to a regenerative world or a happy world, right? So we can go to a more advanced world. So that's why we like Jesus said, right? That there are many dwellings in the on the universe, right? And in our Father's house, right? So and it means that there are infinite worlds on around this universe that where we can incarnate according to our level of progress, right? Right? And but a spirit which is on a superior world also can come here to our earth, which is a world of trial and expiation, or it is still an inferior world, right? And but in that case, the spirit comes as a mission, not as a kind of obligation, right? It's not obliged to reincarnate here. It just comes for love. So that was just what happened with Jesus, right? That I mentioned. And when people who inhabit different worlds, they have bodies like ours in time in terms of form, for example. Right? Probably most of the body throughout the universe have the form of the human body, but the matter that comprises this body is different according to the world. Mhm. So such bodies may be more material or less according to the degree of purity that the spirit has reached, right? A spirit lives in a happy world, for example, and his body is certainly more subtle than ours, right? Which is very dense. So that's what is saying is said here, right? And uh, the spirits, as the spirits purify themselves, as Kardec says, they can see things through the eyes of their body on that world that we here on Earth can only see through thought, right? So that is, for example, let's suppose when we study mathematics, for example, right? Is very abstract because we deal with the numbers, right? We can't and we can think about geometry, for example, right? So, for example, Descartes, French philosopher, used to say that we can, for example, imagine a triangle, right? Something that has three sides, but we cannot imagine an object that have 1,000 sides. We can only think about that, right? I can think, well, an object that have 1,000 sides, but I cannot imagine in my mind, right? Maybe in such superior worlds, they can see, right, what we just can think. That's the situation here, right? And of course, the purification is directly connected to moral perfection. Right? More purified, the higher the moral perfection, the morally they are. And then selfishness gives way to a fraternal sentiment, as Kardec says. Right? And the less material the body, it's less subject to the torments that disorganized it. Right? Because for example, we in Earth, we have, as I said, during our life we can have many kinds of illness, right? The pandemic, cancer, or even a simple cold. So that's something that causes us pain and discomfort. In such superior worlds, the body are more subtle, so that they don't have this kind of thing, right? Because they don't have an illness like you have here. That's what is being said here. That just to incite us to evolve and in order to go to such superior worlds and don't have the many sufferings that we have here on earth. And the worlds are also subject to the law of progress. As I said, right, we have the primitive world, we have the world of trial and expiation, where evil predominates. Then we have the regenerative world, which is the level where Earth is going now. Now, I mean, for the next centuries, where there is no predomination of evil, although not of good also, right? And then after that, we have the happy world. There, good predominates. And after the happy world, we have this heavenly world. There, well, we have no sign of evil over there, right? So that's the world also have such a law for progress. When we say world, of course, it is the humanity of such a world, right? Because world as a physical thing does not evolve by itself. It evolves according to the humanity which inhabited, right? And this the higher, the more evolved the world, the less material the body are, the more etherealized the spirit also are, right? So and so that when we go from one world to another, we as a spirit, we change our perispirit, Kardec says, right? And but such change is done at a speed faster than lightning, right? So it's just immediately change, right? So that's what happened here. Uh, Now let's talk about progressive transmigration. And here Kardec is saying that the life of spirits follow the same phase as corporeal life. Well, we are born when we have the childhood state, then the adolescent, the youth, adult, the old state, and then we die, right? So the spirits follow the same. As I said, it began to reincarnate in a primitive world, and then world for trial and world for trial and expiation, so on and so forth. The difference is that in the corporeal life, there is a beginning, there is an end, right? And in the life of the spirit, there is a beginning, but there is no end because we are immortal, right? And in our corporeal life, we say we know that the spirit is can we saw that I think last month. The spirit can progress I mean the intellectual moral aspect. It can progress, it can stay stationary, but it cannot regress, right? So that in this in we as a spirit, but in our corporeal lives we can kind of a regress, right? Kind of a descend. And that's why, for example, a spirit of a powerful person may, in a new life, come as a humble artisan, or vice versa, right? A humble artisan today can come in the next incarnation as a powerful person because the spirit needs all the kind of experiences. So that's what it happened, right? But just in the corporeal life does not mean that a person who is powerful today in the future will come as humble. The spirit has regressed. No way, right? So it's just on corporally speaking. And because material life, Kardec says, is a kind of a sieve or filter through which we must pass in order to arrive achieve perfection. And what happens to the children after death, right? So the spirit of a child, Kardec says, who dies very young, can be as advanced as that of an adult, or even more, because what the spirit has today is the result of the many lives he had before, right? So it had before. So that's why, for example, we can have a situation where the son, for example, is more evolved than his father, right? Because it brings with him more experience from his past lives. And why a child die in a early age, right? So one of the reasons is because in its former life had been cut short before its due turn. Imagine a people who doesn't take care of his body, right? And then he should live 60 70 years, and then because he does not take care of his body, he have a he has a serious illness and die at 50, for example. So that is 20 years less than what he would have should have lived, right? In that case, in the next reincarnation, he come and he will live only 20 years to complete that 20 years that was left behind, right? So that's one explanation. Another explanation is because the death of a child is a trial or expiation for the parents, right? So suppose a parent that didn't take care very well for his children in the past, and then we have this kind of a trial, right, in a next incarnation. And but well, the spirit of a child goes to the spiritual world. And this well, soon it takes conscience that it is not a child. The spirit is not a child, right? So they take conscience that is an adult spirit that has already lived many lives, and then after some time in the spiritual world, he reincarnates again, right? Begins a new existence, as Kardec says here. And now let's talk a little bit about gender. Well, does spirit has spirits are a male or female? Kardec answer, no way, right? Spirits are not male are not male and female, because sex depends only on the organic composition or on our physical body, right? Love and sympathy among spirits, Kardec explains, are based on the affinity of sentiments and not on the sexual character, right, of the spirit. And also, as I already mentioned before, we as spirit, we have all kind of experiences, and that means that we reincarnate, for example, as men in one life, but we can reincarnate as woman in another life, and vice versa, right? Because we must have all kind of experiences, because each sex, Kardec says, offering us special trials, right? If I reincarnate only as men, as Kardec says, I would know only about what men's experience, right? And that would not be very good for me. So sometime in the future, I must reincarnate as a woman, because then I have another kind of experiences. So that is what is said here, right? So, and now about kinship and affiliation. And parents transmit to his children only animal life, not their soul, right? Not part of their soul, because the soul is indivisible, right? And kinship normally goes back to previous one, because as I reincarnate with my family, we have a kind of affinity, right, among us. So the tendency in the future is to reincarnate together again, right? So that's what is being said here. And but there is it does not mean that we will always reincarnate as family, or always, right? Because there is some situation, Kardec says, the spirit actually say that we may have a neighbor, or we may have a friend, we may have a servant, we have that in the past was part of our family. So that's why we must broaden, the spirit say, the duties of fraternity. Fraternity is not only to our relatives, but to our friends, to the people who work with us, to the society as a whole, right? So, and that's what is being said here, right? So, attaching ourselves to our family affiliations is more a kind of is founded on pride, Kardec says, that on something that is important, because it is not important, right? What's important is what we do during our life. Physical moral likeness, right? So, do children have the same characteristic, physically and moral, than their parents? Well, physically, yes. Huh? Moral, no, because there are the soul are different, right? The soul from of the children and their parents are different. Um, Moral likeness can sometimes exist between parents because of kinship, right? If I lived already in the past, in a past life with my relative, then I have a moral likeness, because we lived already together before, right? But that's not something that must happen that way. And but what the spirit is emphasize here is that although parents does not transmit moral likeness to their children, and they exert an important function, which is education, right? The parents can influence on their children, and then directing them to the good path, for example, right? By educating them. So that's the important mission of all parents. And next, last issue that we are going to see today is innate ideas, right? Because we incarnate in many times, we don't lose the knowledge, the moral elevation or not that we get in the past, and we bring all of that as innate ideas, right? So we preserve traces of the perception we had and the knowledge we acquired in our previous lives. A vague memory remains, right? So that explains why, for example, some children we can see, on YouTube, children of 3, 4, 5 years of age, which plays, for example, piano like a professional, right? So where such extraordinary abilities come? Well, come from something that they learn on a past life, right? So they bring that with them. So that's what is being said here, no? The innate ideas. And sometimes the spirit can lose it certain intellectual faculties. In a past life he used that, made a bad use of that, right? And also another thing is that sometimes a faculty may remain dormant because suppose, for example, that now I am a very intellectual person, right? So I develop myself on the intellectual side, but not that much on the moral side. And the next incarnation, though I have all this knowledge by this intellectual development, and I can take that dormant because in the next incarnation I decided to develop my moral side, right? So that's something that can happen. So that means that because a person does not shows intellectual skills, then does not mean that it doesn't have, he or she doesn't have, right? It may just remain in dormant in him because it must develop new skills on this incarnation, right? So with this, we conclude our presentation today. So today we talked about the return from the corporeal to the spiritual life, and also through about reincarnation. And then, as I said, in the next presentation, which is on May 16th, we'll be studying the spiritual life. So how is our life while we are in the spiritual world? So that's a very interesting issue to go through, right? So thank you for the opportunity. And then I pass to Stefan.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for your time. And before we go, we have a question here. Carlton, he's asking, how do memories go anywhere? By what mechanism?
Well, memories, we say in Spiritism that while we are alive, the memories are in our brain, right? In our neurons and our brain, and the nervous system, and so on and so forth. But uh, when after we die, such memories go to our perispirit, our spiritual body. So, and also while we are here on this present life, we can hold the memories from past lives, not in our conscience, not in our brain, because the brain is new, right? Our brains from this incarnation. All the memories from the past is on our spiritual body also, our perispirit. And but we don't remember that because that's another issue that we study in Spiritism, that um, we when we reincarnate, we forget about our past lives. So that's important because then we can start in over again, right? Suppose, for example, that I was a criminal in our past life. If I born in this life knowing what I did before, that would be a big obstacle for my development, right? So that's why we have this forgetting of the past. But although we have this forgetting of the past, we have our tendencies, we have our intuitions, right? That we bring with us, and which give us some direction, right? So, and so the and well, at the end of the day, then the memory is in our spiritual body. Some say that it's in the spirit. It doesn't matter much because the spirit is never separate from his spiritual body, right? So his perispirit. So it remains there. And from when after we die, the Spiritism says that depending on our level of evolution, we can remember our past lives. Sometimes when the person is very evolved already here on this present life, he can remember his past life. Or Pythagoras, for example, right? Pythagoras, the famous philosopher, the Greek philosopher from the 5th century before Christ, he used to say that he remembered many lives before, right? So memories so is on the spirit or the spiritual body. So it's there, right?
It's like it's like a hard drive we have in our perispirit. We store
Yeah, yeah. It's there, and
all the information there.
yeah,
Yeah.
we never lose any new things that we learn, any intellectual thing, moral thing. We keep all of that with us, although we don't remind, right, in this present life.
Yes. Yes. Good. Good. So let me see if we have any other question.
Leandro is here. I
Hey,
was
Leandro, good to have you here, my friends. Lou VM, thank you as well.
Julian is always with us.
Yes.
Thank you,
And Carlton. I think it's the
Carlton.
first time I see Carlton here. So thank you. Thank you. Good question, Carlton. It's 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 a it's good to understand to make sure you have your answers. So I think this is it, my friends.
No, okay. You want me
So
to do the final prayer?
Rosiane, thank you, Rosiane, as well. Thank
No,
you.
fine.
So would you mind to do a final prayer for us?
Yes, sure. So
Okay.
thank you again for this opportunity to be with you studying the Spiritus book. We prepared the presentation and talked to you about that, but who that learn more about the issue is who that presents, prepared the presentation. So thank you. And now let's go to our uh, final prayer. We want to thank all the spiritual benefactors by helping support us during these presentations that we are doing throughout this year about the Spirited Book. And also we are going to thank Jesus for this opportunity to talk about Spiritism, this doctrine or this philosophy that give us clarifying our minds about the meaning of our lives, the deep meanings of our lives. And finally, we thank God by this incarnation, the present life that we have, where we have the opportunity to evolve ourselves intellectually, both intellectually and morally, and then in order to reach perfection and to go close to the Heavenly Father. So be it.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Once again, I want to say thank you for FASP to kind open this space. And I like to invite everyone to our virtual healing. We will start in 20 minutes on our YouTube channel. Don't have link, don't have anything. Just need to go to YouTube channel at in 20 minutes, 8:30 for those who are on the GMT time. For those who are in Brazil, it's 4:30, and we will see the session live there. Okay,
Okay.
so I'll see you everyone on Thursday, and also I will meet you on our healing session. Thank you, Roberto. God bless you, my friend, your family. Stay
Thank
safe,
you.
stay well. Thank you.
See you on May 16th.
May 16th. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye bye.